Penuel the Black Pen. So on Tuesday, the 5th of November, America will be going to the elections. Now, I'm a proud South African on most good days. I almost don't care about American politics. But the reality is, America is our big daddy. America probably has the biggest influence on ordinary South Africans, from the soapies that we grew up on, The Bold and the Beautiful, Days of Our Lives, to shows like Jerry Springer, Ricky Lake, to hip-hop culture, to the movies that we watch from Hollywood, to some of our favorite celebrities, even today, your Jay-Z's, your Beyoncé's, your Oprah Winfrey's, and even some of the podcasters that some of us admire and want to emulate are American podcasters, your Joe Rogans, your Lex Friedmans, etc. The reality is that America has a huge influence on South Africa. Sometimes when their reports come on how inflation is doing in America, on some of their some of their money policies, on some of their foreign policies, also importantly is that depending on which month you ask, they are our biggest trade partner. On other months, you might say that it's China as well. So the elections have a very huge impact on this country. So it becomes important that the rest of us track what's happening in America. Donald Trump has been president of America at a time when people didn't think he was going to win. He was ridiculed. He was laughed at. This is the guy from The Apprentice. You're fired. But this is America, and this is the story of the American dream. I grew to love Donald Trump, not because I thought he was a great politician. I still don't. But in a world where we're constantly fed propaganda, where we're constantly being lied to, he sounds less fake than others. That's not to say he's not. He sounds less fake. I would almost compare him to a Jacob Zuma in South Africa compared to a Cyril Ramaphosa. Kamala Harris has come in. She's inspired a lot of people in her own right. She comes in as potentially the first female president of the United States of America. And not only if she wins will she be the first female president, but she'll be the first, I need to get this right, African Asian president of America. There were times when people were ridiculing her that she's not black. Some were saying she's got Indian heritage. At times she'd sort of change her story. But the reality is that if she wins, she makes history. Not as a Hillary Clinton as a white woman, but as a non-white woman who has been vice president of America under President Joe Biden, who still, people may not know, who's still president of the country as it stands. It's going to be an interesting election, and many people have been watching because the elections in America are very huge fanfare and entertainment. In South Africa, the last time I remember us having presidential debates was with Nelson Mandela and F.W. de Klerk, both of whom we've unfortunately lost. Nelson Mandela, of course, of the ANC, the African National Congress, and F.W. de Klerk of the NP, the National Party. Since then, many of us have begged to have presidential debates, to actually see if John Steenhuisen can stand up to Cyril, if Cyril can stand up to Julius Malema, if Julius can stand up to a Jacob Zuma, etc., to actually see what these people possess in terms of debating ability, what their policies are in terms of foreign matters, in terms of the economy. How do they plan to lower unemployment? That happens a lot in America. Donald Trump has done that. One of the famous clips that came from there is him accusing people of eating dogs and cats. Shout out to the Kiffness that ended up making like a trending track, ended up traveling around the world promoting the track, and very beautifully took the proceeds of that money to actually donate to homeless pets, homeless animals like dogs and cats, which were Trump accused of being eaten, which was proven to not be true. As we move and as alternative media becomes more important, I do hope that podcasts and other alternative platforms become so much more influential out there. In America, I do think that podcasts will have a huge impact on how these elections on the 5th of November will play out. We saw record-breaking numbers. Donald Trump going to visit the platform of Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan Experience, being the biggest platform in the world. As it stands now, I believe there are over 40 million views in a few days. Many people appreciated how Trump was speaking candidly, how Joe Rogan asked very difficult questions. This is the same Joe Rogan that for many years said he'd never ever interviewed Donald Trump because he wasn't interested. Influenced by one of his business associates, Dana White of the UFC, probably one of his other mates, Elon Musk, who's a big funder, hundreds of millions of dollars in the Trump campaign. I think they nudged him to sit with him. Now, Joe Rogan has said, look, he's keen to sit with Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, I think, actually pulled a great move by saying, look, I will actually go to sort of a new kid on the block, sort of up and coming, but has made a very big mark itself, Club Shay Shay. Shannon Sharp, his podcast, which blew open at the beginning of the year when Cat Williams went there to expose some of the filth and the dirt that happens in Hollywood, speaking about some of the comedians, how some of these guys are beefing and kind of destroy each other's careers. I thought that was a good move. Part of the problem, though, unfortunately, is that Shannon Sharp is not really like the most politically inclined person. Not that Rogan is, but I'd like to think Rogan had meatier questions, is more astute in terms of these things. Shannon Sharp seemed to just be there to praise Kamala Harris, which he was allowed to do. But his questions weren't as interrogative, if I were to put it that way. Secondly, Kamala Harris was there for less than an hour. One of the conditions she's given to Joe Rogan is that if I'm going to sit on the Joe Rogan Experience, I can only do it for an hour. Joe Rogan does 2, 3, 4-hour podcasts. And more than anything, he tries to humanize his guests regardless of who they are, of which he did with Trump, and Trump doesn't mind doing that. And this is the same Trump that's been on so many different platforms. But Kamala needs this because the world is changing. Whether she'll sit on the Joe Rogan Experience or not, I'm not sure. I know that the episode on Club Shay Shay didn't do as well. Yes, the Joe Rogan Experience has got over 11 million subscribers. Shannon Sharp has just got over 3 million. But it still could have done well. It's done just over 1 million views in the last few days that it's been released. It's going to be interesting if Kamala actually decides to go to the Joe Rogan Experience, and time is running out for her to make that decision. They have been going on other podcasts. Donald Trump has been on Theo Vaughn. He's been on Lex Friedman and many others as well. And I do think alternative platforms, I hope, are going to play more of a role in future. It would happen that last year, the year before last year, 2022, when I launched the Penuel show, one of the biggest episodes we did was with the Zimbabwean national Rutendo Matinyarare. Why that episode was so big is because we were discussing African politics, something that mainstream media seems to have kind of forgotten about over time. The constant conflict in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, with people killed week in, week out, and the rest of the world turns a blind eye. But when the world feels like it, we must focus on Israel and Palestine, Russia and Ukraine, when people have been dying in the DRC for years, and the scandals in the DRC, and there are no UN, stop the whole world, shut this thing down, and no one is being held to account. We spoke about Rwanda and Paul Kagame, how well is done there, but also that there may be some skeletons that are not being discussed. We spoke about the issues of Zimbabwe, the issues of South Africa. We spoke about our borders, so-called xenophobia, etc., and that became important. We are now in a space where we're trying to do more of that. We're getting different players to come and have conversations. Leading up to the elections in South Africa in 2024, I had the privilege of sitting with so many different politicians and political hopefuls, from people like ex-President Jacob Zuma's son, Duduzane Zuma, who launched his own political party, the All Game Changers, to young politicians like Paul Takada, to people like Musi Maimani, who'd left the DA to create BOSA, to Herman Mashaba of Action SA, to Soli Msimanga of the DA, to General Bantu Olomisa of the UDM, and so many others, Gayton McKenzie of the PA, etc. It allowed people to consume their leaders in a new way, learning new things about them, learning whether to trust them or not, and actually finding out what these people are about and what their plan is, whether they are lying or not. One of the great channels that has come out from that time, yes, the channel's been around for a while, but in terms of the influence that it's making in the South African political landscape, is the platform of Dr. Sizwe Mpofu Walsh, SMWX. He is now having groundbreaking sit-downs with people like ex-minister Naledi Pandor, people like Floyd Shibambu, who left the EFF to join MK, people like Josienzo Ramokgopa Usputla, the Minister of Electricity, and the fact that we don't have load shedding now, and so many others. Channels like Mark Sham's State of the Nation, where he sat with so many different politicians from all types of backgrounds, so many political analysts and commentators from so many different backgrounds to actually speak about what's going on in South Africa and what we need as solutions. We're hoping that these platforms are going to do the work that mainstream media was meant to do. But when you get platforms like Newsroom Africa refusing to air certain episodes, when you get platforms like ENCA firing people like JJ Tabane because of some of his views, some of the episodes, JJ Tabane is sitting with ex-President Jacob Zuma, who's the leader of MK now, that episode they refuse to air. Why? Because of agendas. And where people have agendas, we need as many different voices and platforms as possible. It is not to say that one platform will be the most objective. They will be biased, and that's okay. It's okay to be biased, but to allow people and their biasness to ask you questions and to interrogate. Then you go on to another platform, like Ben Shapiro's Daily Wire, which is extreme right. They have their own biases, but you're allowed to go there, sit with Matt Walsh, etc. Candace Owens, who was a part of the Daily Wire, has got her platform now, and many people have been saying they hope that Kamala Harris is going to be going to sit with Candace Owens. How beautiful would it be getting two non-white, non-male, amazing voices and leaders in America to sit and thrash out and discuss and debate and speak about the type of America they want to see. And the reality for us as South Africans and Africans is whatever America becomes has a huge impact on us. With that being said, a lot of work is happening behind the doors with BRICS, Russia, Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping of China, India, and all the work that's going on there. One of the big stories that has come out in the last 2 weeks is President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa speaking about how Russia is South Africa's ally. That upset the GNU, Government of National Unity Partner, the Democratic Alliance, with Helen Zille speaking out against it, John Steenhuisen speaking out against it, because they are anti-Putin's Russia. They feel Russia is the instigator of what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. Meanwhile, the ANC, with the SG Fikile Mbalula, who used to be a minister, are like, no, we are pro-Russia. These were people that were standing with the oppressed during apartheid. They helped us in so many different ways. But the DA is saying, no, but you're no longer a majority government in the ANC. You now have a government of national unity. You are in some type of a coalition with us. And it cannot be that if Ramaphosa of the ANC feels that he likes Russia, that it therefore means the entire government or this government that had to be manufactured agrees with him. Leon Schreiber of the DA is currently the Minister of Home Affairs. And he spoke about signing a deal with Ukraine to make sure that they get easier visas into South Africa. Upsets a lot of black people, upsets a lot of ANC leaders. And they came out and they said, but the president has not signed off on this, showing some of the weaknesses of this government of national unity that we have and some of the foreign policies that are clashing in terms of the leading parties in South Africa. If I were to vote, I think it's pretty clear in America, I'd vote for Trump. Not because I believe in Trump, not because I believe Trump is what's best for America, not because I believe Trump is what's best for the world. It's because in America, elections are a game. And unfortunately, you get to choose between Kaizer Chiefs and Pirates. You get to choose between the Sharks of KZN and the Pretoria Blue Bulls. And that's all you have. Red versus blue, Republican versus Democrat. So I'd have to vote for Trump because he seems more authentic. He's run the country before and he didn't burn the world down. If anything, he met with some of the so-called adversaries of America. He sat with Vladimir Putin. They got along. He sat with Kim Jong-un of North Korea and they got along. He's saying even now that if he was in power, all of these conflicts would not exist. He said before that he doesn't support the Russia-Ukraine conflict. He doesn't support the war in the Middle East with Israel and Palestine, of which people may not know. And one of the leaders in American politics, Robert F. Kennedy, has gone on platforms to speak about the military-industrial complex of America and all the companies that are making so much money from supplying weapons to Ukraine, to Israel. All of the agricultural companies that stand to benefit from Ukrainian land. All of the American companies that are printing billions and billions of dollars in various ways because of the conflicts. And many people may not know, one of the most celebrated ex-presidents of America, Barack Obama, was the president that sent more troops to the Middle East to go and kill innocent people. He was never called a warmonger. He was never called to the UN or to the International Criminal Court. But he sent troops. Innocent people died. The same Barack Obama was president at the time when Muammar Gaddafi of Libya was assassinated. And they celebrated this thing, but he's never been painted in a bad light. The same Barack Obama who celebrated, who speaks so amazingly well, is behind Kamala Harris, very close to the Clinton family as well. I'd vote for Trump. I like Trump. I do believe that making America great may be at the disadvantage of the rest of the world, but it's honest. It's real. It's not pretending to be something that it's not. When Trump calls Africa a shithole, he means it, and you can believe him. He's not pretending to love Africa and want what's best for Africa. He wants what's best for America and is fully aware and fully honest about the big surgence of BRICS nations led by China. He was responsible for a minor trade war, which could have been a full-scale trade war, but he was saying we're losing jobs in America. Imagine if South Africa had a leader like Trump, a leader that put South Africans first, a leader that said we will build strong borders around South Africa and we'll make sure that our neighboring countries are going to pay for them. A leader that said we will invest in making sure that we are strong. We will make our economy great. We will bring jobs back into South Africa. We don't want to be giving jobs to immigrants. You can feel however you want about it. You can pretend to be woke and liberal and we love the world. But the reality is, if we're going to play this game of countries and sovereignty and safety and what's in the best interest of the people that pay the tax and do the work, then that's the right way to do it. You can share your views on who you support. Maybe you believe in a Kamala Harris because you're like, I think she's got progressive thoughts. I love the work that she has done with President Joe Biden. I love the fact that she's backed by Barack Obama. I love that she's got good relationships with the Oprah Winfreys of this world. She had Beyonce at a rally. I love Beyonce Knowles. And you're like, that's what I'm about. I don't like Elon Musk. I think he's a creep. I think he's a troll. I don't like some of the people that are supporting Donald Trump. One of the things that came out is that not all Donald Trump supporters are racist, but it just so happened that all racists support Donald Trump. That becomes something to consider. In a South African context, we speak again, Jacob Zuma, Cyril Ramaphosa. All tribalists in KZN, most of them, would generally, if not the IFP, maybe support a Jacob Zuma. We'll see. 5th of November. Last time Donald Trump complained, said there was election rigging. In South Africa, there were complaints by what's called now the progressive forces, and they said that there was election rigging. Many people like myself, as much as we speak about the elections, have come to accept that democracy is a farce. In the same way, our legal system is a farce. If you can tell me that the person that has the most amount of money gets to get the best lawyers and gets to get a better trial or to win, that is not a fair legal system. If two people that are convicted of crimes, one gets to go home and sleep in their bed, the other one has to sleep in a prison cell just because the one has money for bail, that is not a fair system. And you find the same thing that happens in the so-called democracy, where the political parties that get to the start line of the race need so much money just to get there. Where do they get the money from? From the same big business people that are part of the problem. And then you see those same big business people have got a stake in the outcomes of the elections. They've got a stake in the money that's going to be made. So you realize that it is actually big business. In South Africa, we could quote maybe the Oppenheimers. I know Patrice Motsepe donated to the ANC, the EFF, I believe, and the DA, and others. You realize that those guys get to dictate who gets to play the game. They befriend some of these political leaders, and you realize that some of these policies favor their businesses. We don't speak about it enough in South Africa, but tenderpreneurs have been villainized, vilified. And when you think tenderpreneur, you think black people, corrupt black people. The biggest tenderpreneurs in South Africa are white-owned businesses. Your Bidvests, your construction cartels, etc. They make the most amount of money from government, as it were. But yeah, good luck to all the Americans and good luck to the rest of us. Again, they say when America sneezes, the rest of us catch a cold. Good luck to Trump, good luck to Harris, and let's see how it goes.